If you thought you'd seen everything, think again. Hidden details don't stay hidden for long. Silence can speak louder than words, and an entire story can collapse under the weight of a single leaked document and one statistic. That's exactly what happened when Charlie's alleged $50 million life insurance policy surfaced, sending shockwaves across the internet. Suddenly, names like Erika and Charlie Kirk were rarely mentioned in political discussions as conversations shifted to beneficiaries, paperwork, premiums, and unresolved questions. Screenshots travel faster than explanations, and disbelief erupted in comment sections. One post summed it up. "The internet couldn't believe it, and you won't either." Another said, "Bro said too much, and they got him." These weren't mere rumors. People saw the numbers for themselves on official websites and were stunned to find a familiar name linked to them. Imagine being in that situation. The same family, the same loss, the same documents suddenly going viral. The reality is far more disturbing than it first appears. Charlie's public image before the leak was entirely different. He was known for confidence, conviction, and dedication. Supporters praised his hard work, while critics found him divisive, but few ever associated his name with financial records or plans for an early death. That contrast is what made the alleged insurance certificate so shocking. The story didn't start in mainstream media. Independent auditors, financial analysts, and politically engaged online communities digging into tax returns and nonprofit filings first noticed a curious line item in the businesses Charlie was involved with. It wasn't a smoking gun, but premiums of hundreds of thousands per year naturally raised eyebrows. Many initially dismissed it as routine executive planning. After all, prominent figures often carry insurance. What changed was the scale. Commentators began speculating about what kind of death benefit could justify such high premiums for someone so young. This single revelation turned the online conversation upside down, proving that hidden information rarely stays hidden, and even one document can completely alter the narrative. Numbers started circulating: 20 million, 30 million, 50 million. With every estimate, the conversation veered further from normal discussion. Then came the alleged leak, a document, or at least what people online claimed was a document, that revealed a staggering figure, though parts were blurry or cut off. 50 million, the number stuck regardless of its accuracy and quickly became headline news. What shocked people most wasn't just the sum, it was the name attached. Kirk, Erika. The moment her name appeared, the story shifted. Suddenly, this wasn't just about financial planning. It became personal, speculative, and emotional. The existence of the policy itself was no longer in question. Now the focus was on the significance of her name, and online forums exploded with theories. Some rushed to defend her, others to accuse. To understand the intensity of the reaction, you need to grasp the emotional context surrounding the family. Supporters describe Erika as calm, honest, and grounded, someone who frequently spoke about resilience, morality, and integrity. The rumors circulating about her were in sharp contrast to this public image. People are drawn to discrepancies between perception and accusation, leaning in when the two clash. Almost immediately, fake screenshots and alleged direct messages began to appear, purporting to show private conversations. While some expressed prior knowledge, others feigned surprise. None were verified, most were likely fabricated. Yet, in the chaos of a developing story, plausibility often matters more than truth. These claims alone generated hours of discussion. Commentators set dramatic scenes, calculators clicking, papers rustling in dim rooms, numbers tied to a young individual's life. Reaction hosts spoke slowly, letting silence carry weight. They made no outright accusations, they didn't need to. Repeated questions and speculation filled the void. People revisited Erika's past interviews and statements, searching for anything they might have missed. Why would someone so young need so much coverage? The tone and attention to detail drew viewers in. Innocent comments were misinterpreted. Social media investigations often reshape the past to fit current narratives, moving conversations both forward and backward. Family dynamics became a central topic. Speculation grew about how parents, siblings, and other relatives might feel discovering such a policy. Did they know? Should they have? No answers were required. Emotion carried the discussion. The fact that the policy appeared well-structured rather than hastily created added weight to the story. It suggested preparedness rather than reaction, a powerful yet unverified storytelling tool. Financial experts cautiously offered insights online, explaining the policy structure, beneficiaries, and approval process. Every explanation added context, but also raised new questions. And sometimes context does the opposite of calming people. It intensifies concern. Throughout all of this, official answers were scarce. There were either no statements, partial statements, or complete silence. Supporters argued that responding would only lend credibility to speculation, while critics insisted that silence allowed theories to grow unchecked. This tension kept the story alive. The policy amount in Erika's name dominated trends, spawning memes, serious discussions, and debates. Even people unfamiliar with the family were drawn in. Stories like this often move from specialist circles to mainstream when context is limited but the impact is obvious. For many, the money itself wasn't the most shocking part, it was the timing. A young age, a massive figure, and a document that seemed to exist quietly in the background while life carried on publicly created a sense of unease. Clicks were driven by discomfort from that contrast. Once the initial shock faded, a quieter question emerged. What else hadn't been disclosed? How quickly could perception change if more records surfaced? That unspoken question hung over the discussion, heavy and persistent. Commentators teased new details just as viewers thought they understood the situation, dropping hints, a name, a link, a reference, not mentioned in the first wave. Each edition didn't just complicate the narrative, it transformed it. Even critics were paying attention. The internet shifted from shock to fascination. The $50 million figure alone wasn't enough. People wanted to know if it truly existed, who knew about it, and why it had stayed hidden. At that point, the story moved from insurance to control. Reaction channels went into overdrive, filling streams with old videos, spreadsheets, and fuzzy paperwork. Hosts repeated the same phrases in lowered voices, adding qualifiers like, "If this is true," while viewers' curiosity soared regardless. Confirmation wasn't needed. The mere possibility was enough. A single blog article was shared thousands of times in one evening. High-value life insurance policies don't appear by accident. They exist because of planning. Discussion quickly spread across platforms. Planning implies foresight. Foresight implies intent. The public imagination ran wild with questions about intent, even without proof. Fake leaks followed, some obvious, others quietly alarming. Partial beneficiary lists, cropped tables with initials circled in red, and unidentified people sending voice messages circulated online. None were verified, but momentum had taken over accuracy. Commentators began comparing the situation to other high-profile financial and death-related controversies, not to accuse, but to provide context. As one participant noted, documents surface after the fact, and suddenly the story changes. Another added, people see patterns and feel smart connecting the dots, even if it's unrelated. Sarcasm quickly entered the conversation. A widely shared tweet read, "Because nothing says peace of mind like a $50 million policy at 31. That premium alone needs its own podcast," someone joked, and instead of easing tension, humor made the story stick even more in people's minds. As attention surged, Erika Kirk's past statements resurfaced. Videos of her speaking about courage, openness, and honesty went viral, with new captions highlighting her words. Viewers debated the tone. Was she calm because she knew more than she disclosed, or because the speculation was unfair? Different audiences drew very different conclusions from the same footage. Meanwhile, financial analysts cautiously stepped in, explaining how names can appear in administrative records without implying ownership, how trusts work, and how beneficiaries can change over time. These explanations were meant to provide context, but for many viewers, they only added to the sense of suspicion. Family dynamics returned to the discussion. Who else might have known about the policy? Parents, siblings, advisors. The silence of these figures was interpreted in countless ways. Collusion, disbelief, sadness. No evidence existed. Speculation filled the gaps. Attention shifted from legal implications to emotional impact. Commentators wondered how such a large number might affect relationships, trust, and behavior. Psychologists note that money can skew perception long before it changes hands. By this point, the internet had stopped waiting for any official investigation, running its own analysis instead. Users cross-referenced the document's dates with public timelines, appearances, interviews, and life events. The details didn't always line up neatly. Even if discrepancies could be explained, they still fueled concern. Despite shifts in framing, Erika's name remained central. Discussions moved from accusations to questions of knowledge. Did she know something others didn't, rather than having done something wrong? That distinction mattered. Knowledge confers power, but it is not the same as guilt, a nuance that carries huge emotional weight online. Initially, reaction videos were careful to include disclaimers. All of this is alleged, nothing is confirmed. Yet those warnings barely slowed the audience. Disclaimers protect the speaker, but they don't reduce curiosity. One notable video showed a coder meticulously reviewing a spreadsheet, eyes fixed on the premium, then leaning back in silence for a full 10 seconds, a pause that spoke louder than words. Even quiet moments proved more powerful than commentary. Viewers filled the comment sections with their own theories, each more intricate than the last. Over the days, the narrative evolved. The policy was no longer the sole focus. Attention shifted to who benefited from the leak, why it had only now come to light, and whether it was intentional or accidental. Some suspected it was an internal warning, others thought outside pressure was involved, and some chalked it up to a carefully timed coincidence. None could be verified, but each theory added another layer to the story. Speculation about additional documents soon became the new focal point. One commenter asked, "What else is sitting in a file drawer?" That single question lingered, suggesting depth and the possibility of further revelations. Then another name began appearing, quietly at first, not in headlines or thumbnails, but as part of the broader financial or organizational structure. The internet noticed immediately. Threads were created, screenshots exchanged, and people began asking, why is this person involved? At first, the mention simmered rather than dominated the discussion. But simmering details often surfaced later. Reaction channels bookmarked it, bloggers referenced it, and the audience waited. Once the narrative shifted, there was no turning back. The alleged policy was no longer the centerpiece. It had opened the door to scrutiny of systems, advisors, structures, and hidden dynamics. Shock gave way to careful analysis just as viewers began to feel they had seen everything. Then another name appeared just when it seemed the story had run its course. The consequences didn't hit all at once. They crept in slowly, like pressure rising behind a wall no one wanted to acknowledge. With every detail analyzed from every angle, the audience became less concerned with what had already happened and more focused on what would come next. Public attention became overwhelming for Kirk. Every silent moment, every message, every appearance was dissected as a statement. Supporters reminded others that speculation is not proof and urged patience, but by this point, curiosity had taken over. Despite critics' promises that transparency would calm the storm, the lack of clear answers, at least not in the way the internet demanded, became a story of its own. Reaction channels scrutinized every moment, timing, tone, and body language. Not just what was said, but what wasn't said. A delayed response, a short statement, or a partial clarification only sparked more questions than it resolved. Viral scrutiny has a strange rule. The harder you try to control it, the faster it mutates. Charlie's silence was amplified. His name continued to dominate conversations, yet he could neither explain nor contextualize. Every theory was magnified by that void. Without a balancing voice, viewers infused the documents with meaning, intent, and strategy. Silence became a canvas, and the emotional tone of the conversation shifted from shock to discomfort as days turned into weeks. People began asking why the situation made them uneasy. Beyond the money, there was something deeper. The document was a cautionary tale about how private projects often remain unnoticed until it's too late, lurking behind public certainty. Psychologists and cultural commentators interpreted the incident as a lesson in perception, how grief and mistrust intersect, how money complicates bereavement, and how narratives are constructed after loss. No one was charged, yet the expense of unresolved questions, once widely shared, was significant. Erika's supporters pushed back, warning about the dangers of internet speculation and emphasizing that names on documents do not imply guilt. They urge patience and context, but even their voices couldn't keep pace with the speed of online discussion. Detractors argued that public figures invite scrutiny, especially when financial institutions are involved. Curiosity quickly became pressure. The story spread to nearby towns, prompting reactions from distant advisors, firms, and platforms, unprepared for the flood of inquiries. Even unrelated topics and comment sections turned into battlegrounds. It was clear when a story had strayed from its source. Many viewers were unsettled by the lack of a dramatic conclusion. No final document, no revelation, no decisive disclosure. Instead, the narrative remained unresolved and uncomfortable. For some, the ambiguity was frustrating. For others, it felt strikingly real. Life doesn't always provide neat answers. Erika's decreased visibility was debated. Was it deliberate or defensive? Self-preservation or retreat? Both interpretations existed simultaneously. The story evolved slowly online, yet it never fully concluded. $50 million came to symbolize unresolved issues. Threads persisted even as memes faded. Archive clips continued to circulate for new audiences discovering the narrative. The most lasting impact was a shift in perspective. True or not, the story altered how people viewed the situation. Uncertainty replaced trust, exhaustion replaced speculation, and speculation replaced certainty. Ultimately, there was a collective pause, an understanding that some stories never end neatly, especially when they touch on money, power, and loss, rather than offering a verdict or tidy resolution. For some, it was a warning about how easily narratives can spiral. For others, a reminder to consider what might be hidden. For many, it was another demonstration of how the internet absorbs pain, transforms it, and moves on. The secret persisted even as Erika disappeared from view. That lingering, unsatisfied stillness became the final chapter, not with reassurance, not with resolution, but as an unforgettable story. One name, one document, and one number changed everything. What began as a financial issue became an uncontrollable public uproar. The reality is stark. Information revealed after a loss isn't limited to papers. Trust, authority, and the gap between private life and public perception become clear. And once those holes appear, they remain. Ask yourself, how would you react if you were grieving, under scrutiny, and watching strangers fabricate stories in real time? Would you rush to explain every detail, or would you realize that once speculation takes hold, no explanation seems sufficient? The internet has already made its judgment. Some see context removed to drive clicks. Others think unanswered questions are intentional. Many are still waiting to see if more details emerge, or if silence will be the final word. We want to hear from you. Do you think this story has been misunderstood? Are there layers we haven't yet seen, or has the focus on names and numbers gone too far? This conversation goes beyond a single video, so share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to follow updates like this one, subscribe and enable notifications. We aren't chasing noise, we're exploring enduring questions. Stay with us. Though the story seems quiet for now, it is far from over.